So when you go to the embassy with your B1 B2, the B1 B2 visa is it's B1, which is business. So that means if you're going on B1, if you're going on a business, so like maybe you're going to visit business colleagues, or B1, you're going for a conference, conference is under the B1 business. Uh, B1, if you're going to meet people who maybe you do business with, you're in business with, and you're going to have meetings in the US. Then that falls under the B1 visa. And then the B2 is what is called tourism. It's called a tourist visa, which is it involves things like you're going to a conference, you're going to a graduation, you're going to sightsee tourism. So yeah, but they always combine those together and call them B1 B2 visa. So that's B1 B2 visa in total. They call it, that's the visitor visa. So when you apply for the visitor visa, and I have instructions here on my YouTube channel on how you need to fill a DS-160. After you fill the DS-160, then pay. After you pay the fee, $185, then you schedule your interview. And I have videos. If you go to the playlist that has the US visitor visa, the first video is how to answer your DS-160 step by step. The second video is how to schedule your appointment, reschedule your appointment, and so on. And then the other videos are how to answer questions and stuff like that. But so let's say you've completed your B1 B2, you're going to the interview, and now it's questions. So obviously one of the most common question that they'll ask you is, what is the purpose? Why are you going? Why do you want to go to the US? What's the purpose of your visit to the US? That's like the most common question one that they'll ask you. And that the first question is usually the question you want to attack the most. That's the question you want to tackle the best. Make sure you answer the first question completely, because a lot of times, so people say, oh, they've predetermined whether they're giving you this visa before you even come to the window. But in actual sense, I don't believe that's the case. I don't believe that because they don't have time. That is what people don't understand. If you've ever gone to the embassy, like the Nairobi embassy or whatever, there's always lines of people lining up to do interviews. Like every single second is accounted for by someone going for an interview. Because not only are they scheduling visitor visas, they're scheduling students, they're scheduling people who are bringing families, they're scheduling DV lottery. They have so many people. So not just the people who are going for visitor, they have so many people who every single day are going to the embassy. And so like every minute is accounted for. These people barely have, breaks. And so they don't have time to look at your case before you get to the window. A lot of times what they do is they're looking at your case before you come to the window. And because these are trained professionals, they've done training, they've done shadowing, they've watched videos, they've learned these, like all these, like what kind of questions do you ask? How do you read this? How do you read this? The body languages, all these things. They've been taught behaviors. How can you tell somebody whether someone is telling the truth or they're lying? Yeah, things like look for some small things. And a lot of times, before we get to the questions, is what you feel in the DS-160 is what they use to interview you. But they have not sat down and looked at your DS-160 before you arrive. Okay? The day you arrive, when you arrive and you give your confirmation number, that's when they pull your DS. You pull your DS-160 and they're looking at it. And these people are trained professionals. They'll quickly look ask you questions and make quick decisions. That's what they're taught. They're taught to make quick decisions on the fly. Read. Yeah. Is this person telling the truth? Yeah. Have you met the qualifications? Blah. And then, yeah. So what you answer in your DS-160 will go a long way to granting you or denying you a visa. Obviously, there are some things before the interview that will be flagged. What are some of those things? Because you put in your passport numbers and all these other numbers when you're filling in your DS-160. If you've ever been banned from the US, if you've been deported, if you probably, if you have a record if you're inadmissible, that will flag you. Okay, I want to say this because this is important. That will flag you. If you are inadmissible to come to the US, that means you are either maybe you were deported or you were banned or maybe you have a criminal record and stuff like that. Please make sure when you go for an interview and they give you the slip, the pink slip, look at the code that they give you. Okay? I always mention, I've done a video on the denial codes. Please make sure that you're looking at the denial codes. When they give you that pink slip or whatever slip they give you that is you've been denied, sometimes it's white, sometimes it's pink, make sure you're looking at the code. So the most common, the ones that if you're given, that means you did not satisfy what the requirements of the visa is the 214B. The 214B they'll give you because you have not met the requirements. Is something you said that it just, maybe you didn't have enough ties, or maybe you're not making enough to support yourself, or you were inconsistent. It's the way you interview. A lot of times, if you did not meet the qualification, they'll give you the 214B. That's the most common one. They're giving that, and that one is not a problem. A lot of people get denied visas. A lot of people who come to the US, especially from Africa, they get denied visas at least one time. A lot of people. Most people have come here on their second interview, third interview, fourth interview. Some people have even done multiple, double-digit interviews, and they still get it. Maybe the person I know that has done so many, he got it on his 19th time. 18 denials, 19th time he got his visa. Now, I would not recommend someone to do that because you can imagine how much 18, man, that's a lot of money. And that was the day it used to be our 160. It used to be, how much is that actually? I would not advise anybody about to keep going. It's like insanity is keep doing the same thing, expecting different results. Because so if you've gone 18 times, well, that's 19 actually, because he got it on his 19th time. 19 times, and it was like 160. Man, that's $3,000. $3,000 is not cheap money. Yes, finally he made it. $3,000 when you come to the US is not too much money, but $3,000 when you're still in Kenya is a lot of money. It's a lot of money. That's like what, 400,000 or so at the rate that we're in today. So I've talked previously about denials, what to do after you get denied and stuff like that. But make sure you look at the denial pink slip that you're given. If it's 214B, that's fine. That means you just were not able to meet the requirements. If you're given a 221G, what I tell you is 221G is administrative processing. You either have to provide something, or maybe the visa officer, it just was not able to make a decision at the time you were at the window, and he needs to look more into your case, maybe just dig deeper or something like that, just to make sure, verify your data. There's a gap that there's something about your case that he's just not sure. And so 221G is usually a yellow slip. It's like a yellow card. It doesn't mean that you've been given, because sometimes they go do whatever they're going to do behind the tent, and then they tell you your visa has been approved, or your visa has been denied. So it's like a 50-50 shot. If you get a 221G, doesn't necessarily, you've been denied that day, but doesn't necessarily mean that you've been denied forever. They could go look at your case again and change their minds. And then there is the 212. If you get the 212, and there's so many codes under 212, that means you are inadmissible. There's something that is making you inadmissible. Maybe you are, you were deported. Maybe when you were here, you became a public charge. There's just, you broke immigration laws. There's something, maybe you have a sickness, some sickness and stuff. There's, if you are given a 212, that is when you need, before you apply, because you can apply as many times as possible, but they will never give you a visa. You are inadmissible. If you are banned, if you are deported, you need to get a waiver. A waiver, and that's mostly going through a lawyer. Get a waiver that will then make you admissible again. But you'll keep wasting your money, going to the interviews, and then you keep getting denied, and you're wondering why. Why? Is because you're not looking at the slip they're giving you. They're not looking at the slip they're giving you. So those are some. So in actual sense, going back to the questions they ask you on your B1, B2 visa, your visitor visa, are things that you responded in the DS-160. And that is why I discourage people, don't use agents. Do it yourself. And I've empowered you to do it yourself on my YouTube channel. This channel has the information. I've given you a step-by-step, explain to you line by line. How do you feel this? How do you feel this? And how do you feel that? Do it yourself. One of the good advantages about doing it yourself is you will recall what you did. What you put, you will remember. Again, also, I tell people, when you go fill your DS-160, make sure you print out a copy. After you finish your DS-160, you come to the end before, you submit. They give you the option. To print, or I think it's after you submit, they give you the option to print your DS-160, to print your confirmation page. Make sure you print a copy of your DS-160, because that will help you prepare for the interview. Look at your DS-160. Make sure you've memorized it in and out, because when you go to the embassy, the questions that will probably come, they will come from your DS-160. That is your marking scheme. That is what will deny you or give you the visa. Sometimes we focus too much on documents and details and bank statements and invitation letters and things and stuff and supporting documents, but that's not the case. So many people get issued visas without even being asked their bank statement. You can carry bank statement with wheelbarrows to the embassy, and sometimes they will not even look at. How many people, and you've gone to the embassy, they did not even look at one single document? Why? Have you ever asked a question? Why have they never looked at? It's like they didn't even look at me. They didn't even ask me for anything. And I came prepared with all these files and cabinets of documents. Why didn't they not ask me? It's because they're looking at your DS-160 and they want to ask you questions. And part of the thing is they want to verify what you wrote versus what you're saying is the same. If you say something that is not written, that you did not, then you are inconsistent. Inconsistent equals lies. You are lying. You're not being truthful about you're not being truthful about your application. So study your DS-160. Alafu, let's get to the questions. Most common question they'll ask you is why? What is the purpose? Which is and that is one of the questions in the DS-160. They'll ask you, what is the purpose of your trip? And that's, you go to the embassy, they ask you, what is the purpose of your trip? Now, if you know already, if you've filled it for yourself and somebody else did not fill, because what happens a lot of times if an agent does it for you, a lot of these agents don't print the copy. They don't tell you, and they are maybe working with so many clients, they will not, and they just tell you you're going for a conference. And then you end up to the embassy and they ask you very particular questions about that conference. Alafu, you get denied. Why? That's why you need to be involved in the process to know. And they ask you, what is the purpose? Why do you want to go to the US? Why? That is a question you need to attack. If they ever ask you that question, whatever visa you have, if whatever non-immigrant visa you have, if they ask you whether it's a student with an F1 or M1, whatever, what is the purpose? Why do you want to go to the US? That is the question you attack. And if you attack that question well and you respond, so that question should be complete. How should it be complete? You should say why you're going, number one. Don't be vague. Don't just say, I'm going to a conference if you're going to a conference. Be specific. I'm going to this and this and that. Make it a complete sentence and statement. Sometimes I know it's a lot of times they will wait for you to finish your first question, responding to your first question. If you did not, if like they just you totally you like flanked on your first question, sometimes they'll ask you other so many questions and they don't even give you time to respond because they've already decided in their mind this person doesn't have any intentions to come back to their home country or blah. So the first question, very important question, you answer that question well, satisfactorily, and it will set you up. So make sure that question you can include ties. Why are you going? You can mention the conference, that particular conference. Mention, why are you going to that conference? What's the passion behind you going to that? How does that conference connect with your life here back home? It's so connecting that conference, that thing to back home. Very good. So when you do that, you're trying to prove a tie reason for you to come back. Because remember, some of the criteria you're supposed to meet the criteria of it's a non-immigrant visa. You have the intention of coming back to your home country. You can be able to support yourself. You can be able to afford the cost of the visa. Like, however, whether you're supporting yourself or someone is supporting you, you will be able to bear the cost of that visa. But also making sure that you have enough ties and you have the intention of coming back home. Yeah. You have enough ties that they'll say, oh, this person doesn't just want to go and stay in the US. This person will come back. And that's why when they ask you that question on the purpose, make sure you answer it completely. Mention whatever you're doing, tie it back to, how does that tie to your life? And then so if it's a conference, you can tie it to your job, you can tie it to a passion you have, you can tie it to your community. And then it's like whether you're going to the US to get the resources, to get equipment, to get whatever technology and blah, 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 to bring it back home, to do something with it. That's a complete answer. Because you're tying it back to your intention. Again, my intention. I have to come back. Maybe it's a job. You're going for tourism. Some people have said, hey, one of the most common ones is, like someone mentioned the Statue of Liberty. So you're going there, but I have to come back. There's a job waiting for me. I have to come back. There's a family waiting for me. I have to come. When you answer that question, make sure you just tie it back to coming back. Okay? Hopefully and then sometimes they might ask you, why now? Why are you going to do it now? Why are you going to visit your aunt now? Why no other times? Why now? Why don't you want to go in the summer? Why do you want to go in the winter? Why? You have to have space. You have to, so you have to be quick on your feet with some of these questions because they come boom, 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 boom. And that's why you need to know your story, because when you know your story, you're quick on your feet. Aya, how long are you going to visit? How long are you going to stay in the US? Boom, boom. Again, if you did not fill the DS-160, this question you will answer it very differently from the way you fill the DS-160. But if you were involved in doing that, then you know. Okay, I know I've said in the DS-160 I'm going for 2 weeks, or I'm going for a month, or I'm going for however long. And you respond consistently, it's points for you. Either way, points for you. Points for you. All right. So how long how long are you going to the States? Where are you going in the States? Another question. People have been denied visas because you're going to visit your uncle in the US, and then your uncle has sometimes you have all the details. Your uncle sent you the invitation letter, and the invitation letter has all the details on the address. And then the consular officer asks you, where are you going? What city? What's the address of your uncle? Huh? And then when you start hearing crickets in your mind, my friend, denial. Denial. You'll be denied. Why? Because you're not prepared for the interview. These are some, so you need to be prepared. Know your story. Know your story. Be quick on your feet. Respond. Look at them confident. But your confidence will vamos if you're not prepared for your interview. If you haven't rehearsed, it's good, man. It's good. Find somebody that you can ask, you can rehearse some of these things. You can prepare. So that when they ask you some of these things, you're like quick on your feet. Hey, what state does your uncle live? Tururu. The mobile subscriber cannot be reached. What is the address of your what is the address of your aunt? Tururu. The mobile subscriber cannot be reached. Yeah? When? Where? Yeah. It's like, oh, so you're going to visit when did you last see your aunt? We talked about where in the, I think, how long you'll stay. Talked about the place, like where are you going? Who are you going to see? Where are you going? Which is, you need to know the address of whoever is hosting you. If they're hosting you, you need to know the address of the person who's hosting you, which is very, very important to do that. And then the other thing they might ask you is, so from the address, what place, where, what place, what city, what state, what address. US addresses are very specific, by the way. For those of you who do not know, I can maybe explain them to you. The way US addresses work is here. Sorry, let me do this, and then I'll be able to concentrate more. Let me fix my my camera is doing the thing. It's doing the thing. Let me fix my camera. It's doing the thing, and then I'll talk about the US address. Talk about the US address. Man, give me some likes, man. Give me some likes. Those likes are not even moving. Make sure you share. Make sure you share this with somebody that will benefit. It's always good. Sharing is caring. Sharing is caring, man. Sharing is caring. Sharing is caring. Aye. Ora. Pull up, my people. Pull up. I think we're good now. We are. Yeah, we're good. We're good now. Okay. Aye. So after that is, they talk about, so how are you going to how are you covering your trip cost? Because that's very important. That's one of the things that you need to make sure is you need to show how you're covering your cost, the cost of your trip. It's very important, is and a lot by this time, the more questions they ask you, sometimes it should communicate something to you, because if you answer questions really well consistently with the way you filled your DS-160, you don't have to answer so many questions. But if they keep asking you all these questions, and it gets to a point where they ask you for your bank statement, that's not usually a very good indication about how your interview is going. So that's why I said that first question they ask you on the purpose of your trip, make sure you run with it. Like, make sure you run with that question. Run with that question. Answer it. Make it a complete question. Make it a complete answer. Okay. So yeah. So they've asked you where are you going in the US? And then how long how long is your stay? Is there your address? Oh yeah, I was talking about the US address. The US address is very specific for those of you that don't know. If they ask you for the US address, and if you don't know, because the way we do addresses in Kenya is very different than the way we do addresses here in the US. So the way the address is if so, and you'll know whether somebody is renting an apartment or somebody is living in a house. How will you know that? You will know that by the way their address looks like. The way the address looks like is the first thing is the number of the house. So like if I live in a house, like my house, it'll have a number, whether it's like 2041. 2041 is the house number, and the way the houses are here in the US is they are labeled, on one side is even numbers and on the other side is odd numbers. Also, that's a way, if you're ever lost looking for houses or looking for addresses here in the US, just make sure, like, one side of the street will be odd numbers, the other side of the street will be even numbers. Okay, so that's kind of how they do the houses. So the first thing in the address will be the number of the house. Number of the house. If they live in an apartment, it's the number of the complex. Okay, the number of the apartment complex will be the first thing, and then the next thing will be the street that they live in. The street that they live in. All right. So let's say I live in 2021 Colorado Avenue. Okay, Colorado Avenue is whether it's a boulevard, the street, the avenue, whatever you want to call it. It's a circle. There's so many. Yeah, there's so many. So yeah, so it's really the street. What street is? And so if you go to go to that place, you look at the street. This house is on this street. So this house is this number. And then the next thing, this house is located in this particular street. So if Colorado Avenue passes across passes where I live and this house is there, it'll be that particular street. And then the other thing they give you is they give you the city. All right. Oh, before that, if they live in an apartment, and you're filling the address, there's always this thing that's asking you what's the apartment or suite number. If you see somebody with a suite number, that means they're either in an apartment complex, or maybe it's an office that a building with so many offices. It'll have a suite number or it'll have a apartment number. So like the apartment complex is the apartment with all the apartments, which is the first number. And then the apartment number is that particular apartment. But a house will not have apartment numbers or suite numbers. The house will just have the house number. Okay. And then they'll have the city. The city is wherever that particular city that house is located. So let's say somebody lives in Seattle. Seattle will be the city. And then there'll be a zip code. A zip code is that's the way the US is it's mostly divided by zip codes. That's how the US that's how the post office is. That's how they've kind of mapped out the US. It's broken out in zip codes. One particular zip code represents an area. So if somebody lives in 2021 Colorado Avenue, remember the street number, and then the next thing will be will be, whether it's an apartment, it'll have the apartment number, or if it's a house, it won't have anything else. And then there'll be the city. City, maybe they live in Seattle, they live in Kent, they live in Dallas, they live in Houston, they live in Birmingham, they live in whatever street that is. And then the next thing is the state. So it's in Kent or Seattle, and then the state is Washington. It's in Dallas, and then the state is Texas. It's in, it's in where? Uh, why am I blanking? It's in Houston, Texas, or it's in Kansas, Missouri, or it's in it's in Kansas City, Missouri, Kansas City, Kansas. So it'll have the state, and then the zip code, whatever zip code. So that's the address. So if you see it, you'll know it. So if they ask you what's the address you're going to, you just read them the whole thing. Yeah. If they ask you for the address, just read them the whole thing. Read them the whole thing. They ask for the city, you see the city. The city is just before the state. City is just before the state. So city, state, and then the zip code. City, state, zip code. Yeah. All right. So that's like where the place the place you're going to stay, and then sometimes they might ask you, for people who are joining us. Sometimes they might ask you, like, how do I want to? Yeah, like, how much is your trip going to cost? They might ask you that question. How much is your trip going to cost? Or who is covering for your trip? So in that instance, that's why I was saying you need to be on toes with some of these questions they ask you. You need to be on toes, on toes, on toes, on toes. If they ask you what's the cost, you've already have an estimate. It's gonna cost me this much. Tell them. It's gonna cost me this much. Tell them. Have you reserved a flight? You can tell them yes or no. But again, all these questions are coming from the DS-160. You've answered these questions in the DS-160. You've put the address you're going to in the DS-160. So when they ask you, where are you going? And you give them a different address than is what is on the DS-160, you're inconsistent. That is false information. That obviously there's some deception, there's some lies there. You'll get denied. Some people have been asked. That's why when they ask you, okay, I'm going to visit my uncle. Yeah. And when's the last time you saw your uncle? And you answer, okay, what city? What city does your uncle live in? And then it's like Tururu. Tururu means you have not, just go find out and then come back when you know what you're going to do in the US. They will not give you. They will not give you. Some people have been denied because and they were holding the invite. The invitation letter usually has the address. Whenever somebody sends you an invitation letter, most of the time it has the address there. And a lot of these people, I think personally, I know like 3 or 4 people that were denied because they did not know the address, they did not know the city or the state, which is really crazy. And the funny thing is they were holding the invitation letter with them then. And then, but they have no idea. But if you don't know, you don't know. If you don't know, you don't know. But then again, you've responded to all these things. The cost you've already said, whether it's you who's bearing the cost or whether it's or someone else who's sponsoring you. All these things you've already answered. So they're pretty much just, it's a marking scheme. They're looking and they're asking you a question, and then they're waiting for you to give the answer that you already give. They might ask you if you've reserved a flight. Have you ever been to the US again? Is this your first time in the US? And again, all these answers are there. What do you do for a living? What do you do for a living? Again, another question that goes hand in hand. If you look at the DS-160, you will give your work history. Yeah, you will give your work history. That's why if someone else fills for you and doesn't say what they said you do, and you go, maybe you're a hairdresser, and somebody said like the agent said in the thing, this person is a nurse. Now, you saying you're a hairdresser, hairdressing and nursing are like two different zip codes and WhatsApp groups. So just again, these are questions that go hand in hand with the DS-160. We're covering, for those people who are just coming in, we're covering the questions that they ask you, most common questions they'll ask you in a B1, B2, B1, B2 interview, B1, B2 interview. And then, so yeah, what do you do for a living? You tell them you've obviously given your work history there, all the things that you've done, how much money you make. And then they ask you this question: what is your annual income? Yeah. These seem like trick questions, but it's like you gave them the marking scheme and you said, excuse me, sir, here is the exam I've set for myself. Ask me this same exam. Now you go, you said you make 200, you said you make what, 50? No, you said you make 50,000 Kenya shillings a month in your DS-160. And now you show up in the embassy with this fake bank statements that you've gotten from River Road or wherever you got them from. And then you stay, they ask you, what is your annual income? And then what is your, yeah, oh yeah, annual income or monthly income, depending on how you answer that question. Because you can always choose whether it's monthly, you want to give monthly, weekly, or and they ask you, what's your monthly income? And then you're like, oh yeah, I make 250,000 Kenya shillings a month. And then they're looking at your DS-160 and you said you make 50,000. There's no way you're getting that visa. No way you're getting that visa. Consistency, man. And you, as you've seen, all these questions have a bearing on your DS-160. There's something you filled in your DS-160. Yeah. Because sometimes they might ask you, do you have property? Do you have property? What kind of property do you have? If you're going and you have a business, who will look after your business? Who will look after your home when you're gone? Yeah. How many kids do you have? How many kids do you have? How many kids do you have? And what have you? I think, man, that question, I have answered that question completely, comprehensively. I think, yeah, yeah.